Stop that! You don't talk to an old lady like that. You should apologize to her right now.
We're sorry.
Good, now behave.
His twin sons destroyed every nanny who walked into their mansion. They hacked phones, set cruel traps, and made grown adults quit in tears. No one could control the billionaire CEO's little devils until one immigrant girl from Africa looked them in the eyes, told them to stop. And for the first time in their lives, they obeyed. Michael Han was a name that commanded respect across South Korea. At just 34, he was the youngest CEO to ever lead one of the country's most powerful tech conglomerates. Tall, broad-shouldered, and devastatingly handsome, Michael had sharp eyes that missed nothing and a calm authority that made grown men straighten their backs in boardrooms. The media adored him, calling him the golden CEO, the dream husband, the man who had it all. But every evening, when the skyscraper lights faded behind him and his luxury car rolled into the gates of his mansion, Michael stepped into a world no camera ever showed. A broken home. 3 years earlier, his wife, the love of his life, had died suddenly, leaving behind silence, grief, and 2 small boys who stopped smiling the day she was buried. Since then, Michael had tried to be everything at once: father, mother, protector, provider. But grief does strange things to children, and the twins were slowly becoming strangers to him. Jin and Jun were identical in every way. Same sharp eyes, same innocent smiles, same brilliance far beyond their age. At 5 years old, they could read, code simple programs, and understand adult conversations better than most grown-ups realized. But their intelligence had twisted into something darker after losing their mother. They didn't just misbehave. They planned. They worked as a unit, communicating with glances and silent signals. One distracted adults with charm while the other set traps. They recorded reactions, learned weaknesses, and struck again. One nanny had her phone hacked and replaced with looping screams. Another found fake blood smeared across the bathroom mirror. One poor woman was locked in the storage room for an hour while the twins calmly ate snacks and watched cartoons. Every incident ended the same way: the boys smiling sweetly, eyes empty, as adults trembled or cried. Staff began calling them little demons behind closed doors. Michael called them his sons and blamed himself. Michael tried to fix the problem the only way he knew how, by throwing everything he had at it. Top nanny agencies, triple pay, security checks, child psychologists, behavior therapists, family counselors. Nothing worked. The boys threw tantrums so extreme they once shattered a glass table with a metal toy. They screamed until their voices cracked, refusing food, refusing sleep, refusing affection. Other days, they were eerily calm, too calm, watching adults like experiments. At night, Michael sat alone in his study, staring at old photos of his wife holding the twins, wondering where he had gone wrong. "I'm failing them," he whispered more than once. He had conquered industries, but he was losing his children. Maya Adeyemi had crossed oceans with nothing but courage and dreams. She was a beautiful black woman from Africa, her deep brown skin glowing softly even on hard days. Her eyes carried quiet strength, but also exhaustion, the kind that came from rejection after rejection. She was new in the country, an immigrant, alone. That afternoon, she walked through a small public play park, clutching a thin folder filled with resumes already stamped with disappointment. She was on her way to yet another interview she wasn't sure would lead anywhere. She paused briefly, sitting on a bench to rest her tired feet. That's when she heard laughter. Not the joyful laughter of children, but something sharper, crueler. Maya looked up, and her heart tightened. Near the swings, two identical little boys were circling an elderly woman, clearly their nanny. One pretended to cry loudly, drawing her attention, while the other crouched behind her, carefully tying her shoelaces together. When the woman took a step, she stumbled, nearly falling. The boys burst into laughter. Maya stood up instantly. "Hey," she said, walking toward them. "That's not funny." The twins turned, surprised. Adults usually yelled, or begged, or threatened. Maya did none of that. She stood tall, calm, her voice firm but controlled. "You are clever," she said. "I can see that, but cleverness without kindness makes you small." The words landed. The boys froze. "Untie her," Maya continued. "Now." For the first time in their lives, they listened. From a short distance away, Michael Hahn watched the entire scene, his heart pounding in disbelief, as his uncontrollable sons obeyed a stranger without a fight. And in that moment, everything changed. Michael Hahn did not believe what he had just witnessed. His sons, the same boys who had reduced grown adults to tears, who laughed in the face of authority, who treated rules like toys, had gone silent. They stood still in front of a stranger, not intimidated, not frightened, listening. Michael rose slowly from the bench where he had been pretending to check emails. His heart beat harder with each step as he approached the scene. The old nanny looked shaken, breathing heavily, but unharmed. The twins stood side by side, heads slightly lowered, their eyes darting between Maya and the ground. Michael hadn't seen that posture in years. "I'm sorry," Maya said gently to the elderly woman as she helped her straighten up. "You didn't deserve that." The woman nodded gratefully and hurried away, still glancing back, as if afraid the spell would break. Michael finally spoke. "I've never seen them behave like that." Maya turned to him, surprised. "They're children," she said simply, "but they're hurting." That sentence struck him harder than any accusation. He introduced himself, apologizing for his son's behavior. Maya listened politely, still watching the twins with a thoughtful expression. No fear, no judgment. When he offered her a job, it wasn't rehearsed. It was instinct. "Please," he said. "I'll pay whatever you ask." Maya hesitated. She needed work, she needed money. But more than that, something about the boys pulled at her heart. "I'll try," she said finally, "but I won't be afraid of them." For the first time in a long while, Michael felt hope. The Hahn mansion was beautiful. Cold marble floors, expensive art, perfect silence. Maya understood immediately why the boys hated it. From day one, Jin and Jun declared war. They tested her boundaries relentlessly. They spilled juice deliberately, then blamed invisible ghosts. They hid her shoes, switched alarm clocks to ring at 3 a.m. They lied to staff, accusing her of things she hadn't done, watching closely to see if she would panic. They wanted her gone. Every nanny before her had cracked. Maya did not. She cleaned calmly, corrected gently, refused to argue. When they screamed, she waited. When they insulted her, she smiled. That unnerved them more than shouting ever could. One night, after an especially exhausting day, Maya sat on the floor with them instead of storming off. "In my village," she said softly, "there were two boys just like you. Very smart, very angry." The twins paused. She told them stories, African folk tales filled with wisdom, tricksters, spirits, and lessons about loss, grief, and kindness. She didn't preach. She didn't threaten. She shared. Night after night, the boys crept closer to her voice, and without realizing it, the war began to fade. Weeks passed, then months. Something miraculous happened. The tantrum stopped, the screaming quieted, the traps disappeared. Jin and Jun began waking up early, not to cause chaos, but to sit beside Maya as she braided her hair or prepared breakfast. They followed her instructions, not because they were afraid of punishment, but because they trusted her. They told her secrets. They asked questions. They laughed again. Michael watched it all from the shadows of his own home. He noticed how the boys ran to Maya when they were scared, how they listened when she spoke, how they slept peacefully after story time, no longer waking from nightmares. The house transformed. So did Michael. He found himself lingering near doorways, listening to her voice, watching her smile, wondering how someone who came into his life by accident had become its center. He hadn't planned to fall in love, but grief had softened him, and Maya had healed places he didn't know were still bleeding. Maya loved Michael quietly. She noticed the way his shoulders slumped when he thought no one was watching, the way he stared at old photos late at night, the way guilt lived in his eyes whenever the twins misbehaved, even though they barely did anymore. She loved him not as a CEO, but as a man who had lost everything and still tried. Michael loved her slowly. Respect first, admiration next, desire later. One evening, after the twins fell asleep with their heads resting on Maya's lap, Michael sat across from her in the dim living room. "I don't know what we would have done without you," he said. Maya smiled softly. "You would have found a way." He shook his head. "No. You changed us." His voice trembled. That night, he realized he was no longer afraid of loving again. Michael proposed on a quiet night. No cameras, no audience. Just truth. "Maya," he said, kneeling before her, "will you be my wife? And their mother, if you'll have us?" Tears streamed down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "I chose you long ago." When the twins heard, they screamed with joy. "Forever?" June asked. "Forever," Maya said, opening her arms. They ran into her embrace. The mansion that once echoed with grief now rang with laughter. A broken CEO found love again. 2 wounded boys found a mother. And a woman who came searching for a job found a family. Not by accident, but by fate. Marriage did not magically erase the past. Michael and Maya's wedding was quiet and elegant. No press, no headlines. But once the celebration ended and real life resumed, new challenges surfaced. The twins loved Maya deeply, but grief does not disappear just because love arrives. Some nights, Jin woke up screaming for his biological mother. Other days, Jun grew distant, staring out windows for hours. Maya held them through every storm, but the world outside the mansion was far less kind. Whispers began at Michael's company. A black immigrant woman, a former nanny, now the CEO's wife. Executives smiled to her face and questioned her behind closed doors. Michael noticed the way board members hesitated when Maya entered the room, how some avoided eye contact altogether. Michael reassured her, "You are my wife. No one gets to disrespect you." But Maya sensed the storm forming. Maya decided she would not live in silence. She enrolled in business language classes, studied corporate etiquette, learned the industry from scratch. She attended meetings, not to speak at first, but to observe. Some executives underestimated her. That was their mistake. When Michael fell ill one morning and couldn't attend a critical meeting, Maya stepped in. Calm, composed, unshakable. She didn't speak much, but when she did, the room went quiet. Her insights were sharp, her intuition accurate, her confidence undeniable. The same men who mocked her background now nodded slowly. At home, the twins watched their mother transform. "She's strong," Jin whispered once. "Yes," June replied. "Like the queens in her stories." Just when peace seemed possible, the past knocked loudly. Michael's late wife's mother arrived unannounced. She never accepted Maya. "She's replacing my daughter," the woman accused. "Those boys will forget her." The twins overheard everything. Confusion returned. Loyalty was tested. Jun withdrew again. Jin became angry. Maya did not fight back with bitterness. Instead, she invited the woman to stay. She cooked for her, listened to her grief, honored the twins' biological mother openly, displaying her photos, telling stories about her kindness. Slowly, resentment softened, but the emotional damage to the twins had already begun. One evening, after a heated argument between Michael and his mother-in-law, the twins disappeared. The house erupted in panic. Security searched. Police were called. Hours later, they were found at the cemetery, sitting beside their biological mother's grave. "I miss her," June whispered. Maya knelt beside them, tears flowing freely. "It's okay to love her," she said. "Love doesn't disappear because I'm here." The boys hugged her tightly. Michael watched, overwhelmed by the strength of the woman he married. That night, he realized something terrifying. He loved her more than he had ever loved anyone, and he was afraid of losing her. Just as the family healed, danger appeared in an unexpected form. A powerful investor publicly questioned Michael's leadership, hinting that his marriage had compromised his judgment. Stock prices wavered, the media sniffed scandal, and someone from Maya's past, a man who knew her before she left Africa, appeared unexpectedly, carrying secrets that could shake everything. Maya stood at the window that night, staring into the city lights. She had come searching for a job. She had found a family. Now she would have to fight to protect it. And the hardest chapters were still ahead. The man's name was Kelechi Okafor. Maya hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in years. Yet the moment she saw it on her phone screen, her hands began to tremble. He stood outside the mansion gates the next afternoon, well-dressed, confident, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked nothing like the boy she once knew back home. Power had changed him. Money had hardened him. "I knew you'd end up somewhere like this," he said smoothly when she stepped out. "I just didn't expect a billionaire CEO." Maya's voice was cold. "Why are you here?" Kelechi leaned closer. "Because your life is built on secrets, Maya. And secrets always come calling." Unbeknownst to them, a journalist across the street snapped photos. That night, Michael noticed Maya's silence. For the first time since he met her, she avoided his eyes, and fear settled into his chest. The scandal broke fast. Headlines exploded across social media. CEO's wife linked to mystery man. Is Michael Hahn being manipulated? Immigrant past raises questions. Stock prices fell. Board members demanded answers. Michael stood firm publicly, defending his wife without hesitation. But privately, doubt crept in. Not because he didn't trust Maya, but because he didn't know her past. And she hadn't told him. At school, the twins were bullied. "Your mom is fake," one child sneered. "She's not even your real mom," another said. Jun punched a boy. Jin stopped speaking entirely. That night, Maya broke down for the first time. "I wanted to protect you," she cried to Michael. "But my past, it's darker than you think." Michael held her, but fear had already entered the marriage. Maya finally told him everything. Back home, she had once been engaged to Kelechi. He wasn't just an old lover. He was dangerous. He had controlled her life, isolated her, used her intelligence to build his own success. When she tried to leave, he threatened her family. When she finally escaped the country, she thought she had outrun him. She was wrong. "He knows things," she whispered. "Things that could destroy me, or us." Michael's world tilted, not because of her past, but because someone had once hurt the woman he loved, and now stood close enough to strike again. That same night, Michael's investor received anonymous documents, allegations, half-truths, carefully twisted lies. The attack had begun. The pressure crushed the twins. Jun regressed, bedwetting, night terrors, screaming fits. Jin became frighteningly calm. Too calm. One afternoon, Maya couldn't find him. Panic exploded. Security searched the mansion. Police were alerted. Hours later, Jin was found at the play park. The same one where Maya had first met him, standing alone, staring at the swings. "I thought if I disappeared," he said quietly, "everything would stop hurting." Maya collapsed, holding him so tightly she could barely breathe. Michael realized something devastating. This wasn't just about reputation anymore. It was about survival, and the enemy knew exactly where to strike. Kelechi made his move. He requested a private meeting, with Maya alone. Against Michael's wishes, she went. "You can end this," Kelechi said calmly. "Leave Michael, leave the boys, publicly disappear, or I release everything." Maya stared at him, heart pounding. She thought of the twins' laughter, Michael's tired smile, the home she had finally found. "I won't run," she said. Kelechi smiled. "Then you'll burn." That night, Maya packed a bag, not to leave, but to fight. As she stood in the doorway of her bedroom, watching Michael and the twins sleep, she made a silent vow. "No matter the cost, no matter the darkness, I will protect my family." And somewhere in the city, a final trap was already being set. It happened on a night that felt deceptively normal. Michael was overseas for an emergency board meeting. Maya stayed home with the twins, determined to keep life calm despite the storm circling them. They had just finished story time. Jin and Jun were asleep, breathing softly, their hands tangled together like they always did. Maya kissed their foreheads and turned off the lights. That was the last peaceful moment she would know for a long time. At 2:14 a.m., the mansion's security system went dark, not malfunctioned, disabled. By the time Maya woke to the sound of her bedroom door creaking open, it was already too late. She screamed, but the house swallowed the sound. When dawn came, the twins were gone, and written on the nursery wall in black marker were the words, "You should have left." Michael landed to the worst call of his life. His world collapsed in seconds. He abandoned boardrooms, cameras, dignity, everything, and rushed home like a man possessed. When he saw the empty beds, the broken window, and Maya shaking on the floor, something inside him shattered permanently. "I failed them," he whispered over and over. The police launched a full investigation. The media went feral. CEO's children kidnapped. Was the marriage a mistake? Michael stopped sleeping, stopped eating. He offered money, influence, his entire empire. But kidnappers don't always want money. Sometimes they want ruin. And Maya knew exactly who was responsible. Kelechi resurfaced, publicly this time. He filed a lawsuit questioning Maya's legal status, accusing her of fraud, manipulation, and emotional abuse of the twins. He claimed she had endangered them and should be investigated. The audacity was staggering. The timing was no accident. Michael's legal team fought back aggressively. The case exploded into an international legal war involving immigration, custody rights, and corporate ethics. Courtrooms became battlegrounds. Maya was torn apart on the witness stand. Her past replayed like a weapon. She didn't cry. Not once. But when a lawyer implied she wasn't a real mother, Michael stood up. "She saved my children," he said loudly. "She is their mother." Outside the courtroom, Maya received a single anonymous message. "Confess or they disappear forever." Maya made a choice. She didn't tell Michael. She followed the instructions sent to her phone, alone, unarmed, heart pounding, but mind terrifyingly calm. The location was an abandoned warehouse near the docks. Inside, she found them, Jin and Jun, tied but alive, bruised, terrified. "Mama," Jun sobbed. Maya dropped to her knees, tears finally breaking free. Then Kelechi stepped out of the shadows. "You always choose them," he said bitterly. "Even over yourself." He demanded everything. A public confession, divorce, silence. Maya smiled through her tears. "You lost the moment you touched my children." She pressed a button on her phone. Police sirens screamed in the distance. Kelechi lunged, but Michael arrived first. The confrontation was brutal. Words turned into fists. Truth turned into evidence. Michael revealed what Maya hadn't known. He had suspected the trap and worked quietly with authorities, tracing Kelechi's network, recording his threats, gathering proof. Kelechi was arrested, screaming. The twins were rushed into their parents' arms. The legal war didn't end overnight, but the truth was louder now. Weeks later, the court ruled. Maya was cleared of all accusations. Her immigration status was secured permanently. She was legally recognized as the twins' mother. Michael stood beside her, holding her hand as cameras flashed. But this time, Maya wasn't afraid. She had walked into hell and come back stronger. That night, as the twins slept safely between them, Michael whispered, "We survived." Maya smiled softly, eyes filled with fire. "No," she said. "We won."